Whenever you talk to a metal fan about Slayer, they're bound to have an opinion. As a card-carrying member of the Big Four of thrash, and quite arguably maybe the second most popular of that foursome, this is a group that has a wide fan base, but also a large amount of people that are not exactly a fan of what Slayer bring to the table. We've already talked about 5 reasons why people hate Megadeth and 5 reasons why people hate Metallica, so it is only fair that we talk about one that may actually have, 5 reasons that make some sense. Or not. Well, let's take a look and examine them. Here's 5 reasons why people hate Slayer. Number 5, they're satanic. Now, this is probably an argument that you don't see all of that often, unless, of course, you have an overly religious individual on your Facebook page that's perhaps trying to save your soul through jars of clay lyrics. But this is an argument that's been going on ever since the band first broke through in the 1980s, where concerned and Christian individuals were concerned that their children were listening to music of the devil. There's something that you even see here in the 20-teens as websites such as JesusIsSavior.com speak about how the band is directly offending and speaking against Christ through the lyricism, citing lyrics from songs such as God Hates Us All in order to prove their point. Whether or not this is something that matters to you or not is kind of irrelevant in this case, considering Slayer does sort of possess about themselves a bit of an evil image. However, the funny thing that is realized is that one of the members actually is Catholic, or at least had ties to Catholicism at one point in time in his life. An interesting argument, one that is purely based on music and lyricism, imagery, and the like. And this website also goes on to say that Dave Mustaine is a fraud, considering he still supports Slayer. Maybe based around his new image, and this guy actually has a point. Number 4, there's no good album past Seasons of the Abyss. As opposed to everything being complete rubbish since Seasons, this is the argument that none of the albums that Slayer has produced since Seasons in the Abyss have been really up to quality standard. Now, this is going to be one that spurns a lot of arguments because of albums such as God Hates Us All or Christ Delusion. There are even those that are fierce defenders of other albums such as Divine Intervention or Diabolus in Musica, and even most recently Repentless. This is just an argument that is mainly held by true fans of the band, and by true I mean old, considering the 1980s material by Slayer and the early 90s with South of Heaven and Seasons of the Abyss is rather impeccable. This is a great string of albums that could be seen similarly as the run of albums that Iron Maiden had in the 1980s. They feel like they are part of a metal, pantheon of greats that really deserve to not only be consumed and listened to, but should be on top 500 lists. Whether or not your opinion is that everything past Seasons is rubbish or not, Slayer have released albums ever since then that have been not necessarily all of that bad, but in large cases don't seem to match that aggression, that energy, and that real poise to change as those first couple of albums initially did. Number 3, based off of number 4, Slayer is overrated. Most people feel that Slayer's best music has been behind them for about 20 years, which is what propels number 4's arguments quite a bit. But also many people claim that this is a very overrated band, considering they have had all of the media exposure that they have ever since the 1980s, whether it be based off of the original carnage and anti-Christian lyricism that was found on some of the first and initial albums, the success of Rain and Blood, or more recently, the album God Hates Us All being released the same date as 9/11 and then repeating the feat with Repentless. This is certainly a band that has gotten a lot of publicity. They have been in the news, whether that or they have been in at least the heavy metal news. It's a band that seems overexposed and just done to death to many individuals, and it's the reason why they just can't get into Slayer. They feel that they're simply everywhere, and that it is required of them as a metal fan to be a fan of this group, even if they don't find the music to be all of that good. We're going to get a little bit deeper into that, don't you worry. Number 2 is Kerry King. Now, we all know that there's a Mount Rushmore in South Dakota. It has presidents on it. Neat! But there's also a mountain of shut the fuck up, which now has card-carrying members in Gene Simmons, Ted Nugent, Corey Taylor, and finally, last but not least, Kerry King. Carey has been an individual that over the past couple of years has had more microphones in his face than some porn stars may have had dicks for blowjobs. And either time that this has happened, no matter what the topic has been, Carey has given them a soundbite that no doubt has ended up on a website such as Blabbermouth, Metal Injection, Metal Sucks, you name it, we've talked about it even here. It's something that's almost unavoidable, and some of the opinions are so lavish and ridiculous that you almost have no choice but to give it a little bit of attention. Well, you do have a choice, but it's kind of silly considering, wow. Iron Maiden and Metallica are both living off of past successes. Carey, are you living in the same universe where you're in Slayer? Because you are, and your band's kind of been doing the same thing, as many people have pointed out, in the video response that was done on this channel. That was a cheap plug. Either way, this is something where the band has started to lose some card-carrying members. There have been folks that I've seen pledge to never listen to Slayer ever again based off of some of these opinions, and those that weren't really planning to by the start based around statements of Carey King, and there are those that just feel that he's a huge, gigantic penis anyway, considering the way in which his bald head looks and the shit that comes out of his mouth, which is basically joke semen. Number one, and perhaps most importantly, and I really am starting to loathe this argument, but this is probably one of the best exhibitions of it, it's the fan base. Slayer's fan base has been extremely rabid as a culture for many decades. It's to the point where in one of his comedy specials, Jim Breuer spoke about attending the Big Four concert and noticing such a savage difference whenever Slayer is about to come onto the stage, comparing it to an orc horde that was about to trample all of the meager non-fans of Slayer, or at least those that didn't care for him all of that much. This is a fan base that's also exceptionally savage and active not only on social media, but also just in reality. It's one that, if you have a conversation that involves Slayer not being all of that great, you're immediately public enemy number one, almost as though there's some sort of weird biker gang and you're just the guy that they're about to kick the shit out of and tar and feather and leave outside of a town for all to see that this is a Slayer town. This is Slayer territory. If you don't like this band, then you might as well just get back into your Prius and get the fuck out, because we don't need that kind of wimpy pansy bullshit here. This has been a problem, honestly, for more than 30 years. Slayer has been able to really rile up a very dedicated, a very sensationalized fan base to the points that people have carved Slayer into their arms, gotten tattoos on their heads, whatever it may be. While that could easily just be seen as symbolic of their love for this band and how this group has truly affected them, it doesn't exactly help that these folks aren't exactly the best of opinionated bunch in the world, considering they do tend to have a bit of a closed-minded attitude. Slayer being the greatest band of all time is one of the biggest arguments that you'll hear. Slayer never doing any wrong is the second. But at the same time, the more sensible members of this wild and crazy legion are also the ones that have the most in the way of something to say whenever they feel Slayer has done something wrong. So there is a bit of a counterbalance here, a bit of a positive and a negative, though there's more than the majority that will tend to side with what the band has done, kind of blindly following them just the same way as perhaps they claim that Bray Wyatt has followers in the Wyatt family. It's sports entertainment, shut the fuck up. Or how Trump has found a way to gain blind followers, or how Hillary makes blind followers out of lies. It's really kind of weird. Maybe that would have been better suited for the presidential candidates as heavy metal bands video that never happened. But either way, Slayer is a group that has been able to gain a huge fan base, and they are exceptionally loyal. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 reasons why people don't think that Slayer is the bee's knees or the cat's pajamas. 5 reasons why they don't think that Slayer can kill your favorite band. And 5 reasons why they don't feel that Slayer could fuck your mother. If you agree with this list, let me know by getting active on that like button below. Man, that was even weird just to say. Forget I even said that. Fuck that noise. It should be an outtake, but I'm keeping it in because why not? If you really like this series, hit the subscribe button. I tend to do these perhaps once a week. And leave your comments if there's any reasons that you thought that we've missed. I'm coverkillernation, and I will talk to you guys next time whenever we dissect 5 reasons why people hate another band.